Testing 1 2 3. 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 I think it's good now. Mr. Mayor, it's 7 o'clock.
Hello? Bye.
Oh, there we go. Hey, all right. We're there.
Test.
Everybody's working?
Test.
Ooh, turn his down.
Mine's too loud too.
Ooh. No.
Testing. No.
Never.
Testing.
Never, never land.
Mine's too loud too.
Never, never land.
Test, test, test. That's better.
We just want to make sure you all can.
Test. Still too loud.
Just a little bit.
He's out. He's out.
Test. Too loud.
He's out cutting people's power off. Okay. We all right? Everybody okay?
Test. Still a little loud.
All right. I didn't count.
How about now? Nope.
All right. You okay here?
I think it's better, but it's fine. I'll just speak away from it. Yeah.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I want to call the October 14th special council meeting to order. Thank you for indulging us. Are there any amendments to the agenda? Seeing none. Presentation by citizens. Are there any citizens that, do we have a list back there, or that anybody signed a list? Any citizen wanted to speak to the council on the agenda tonight? Seeing none. Nobody signed up with? After, okay. Got it. Got it, okay. New business, approval of, we have no presentation by citizens, new business approval of the bids for professional services. We have 2 bids. Is there a motion for?
Mr. Mayor, may I make a statement first?
Sure, after we get this
It
motion
needs to
out.
be before.
Huh?
It needs to be before.
Before the motion?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. In the light of transparency, I have a conflict of interest in this decision, so I'm going to sit out and not be in on the discussion or the vote.
Okay,
And I also want it on the record that I haven't talked to any of the council members prior to this about this decision. Thank you.
Okay, in that case, I'm gonna need you to leave the room, actually, if you,
The Ethics Commission has now come out and said when you're recused, not only do you have to announce it on the record, you need to file a written recusal. So at some point in time, Councilman, if you would be kind enough to say, I recuse myself from this because I have a conflict of interest in having it made part of the record, that does it technically by the book. And it's a dumb amendment, but that's what they now say.
okay, so does he have to leave the room or what?
He should not participate, probably ought to exit the discussion.
Okay,
You can watch it, sure.
I mean, from up here or down there, is what I'm asking.
It's totally up to
Okay, what do you want to do? You want to stay up here and do, okay. But you can't say nothing. You can't make any motions. All right. All right, no problem. Then the three of us, we still have a quorum, so the three of us, is there a motion to approve, motion to review the bids?
So moved.
Is there a second? Perfect. I'd like to call up AOC, anybody from the ADC Engineering? I apologize.
Hello,
Thank you so much. And who are you, sir?
I'm Bruce Todd with ADC Engineering.
Bruce, thank you, Bruce, very
Yes,
much.
sir. Absolutely. We do have a slide presentation. Okay. Is there a way for me to advance the slides? Okay, all right. Again, my name is Bruce Todd with ADC Engineering. I wanted to thank the town of Irmo for allowing me to come here this evening to present our qualifications and discuss further our submittal. ADC Engineering, next slide, please. We are a firm specializing in civil engineering, structural engineering, and landscape architecture. Back up a little bit. You can see our office here. We're right near the Publix down the road, so I can basically ride my bike to the site if I need to. And one thing to point out about our company, when I said we had civil engineering, structural engineering, and landscape architecture, is we do have landscape architects on staff. We have 3, and they would be heavily involved in the project. Next slide. And you can see here some of the examples that were heavy on the landscape architecture side. Next slide. One thing I want to point out is we know that the skate park is a big component of this project. So we wanted to bring in a firm that specializes in skate parks, and that's all they do. And the company is Team Payne. The owner of the company's name is Tim Payne, so he named it Team Payne. They have over 30 years experience in skate park design. One key thing to point out, though, is they have a lot of experience in helping owners to fund the park, so they can help the town with writing grants, what have you, to assist in funding the park, because that's going to be a major expense to the facility. Next slide. All right, so let's talk about the part that we have a rendering of. This is what was submitted in our package for the town to review. And we'll start from Plan West to Plan East. Next slide. So we'll talk about the parking lot. Next slide, please. All right, so what we want to do is there's usually a minimum and a maximum for parking spaces according to code. What we would want to do is take a look at the minimum number of spaces required to support the facility, and that's really driven by a cost standpoint. Obviously, parking lots are not cheap. We don't want to put in more than is needed. Next slide. Should be.
This is the concept plan was page 16. You had to go pretty far. 16?
That's fine. Ready? Okay. So one thing we want to look at when designing the parking lot is we want to try to reduce the amount of runoff. So an option we have is to put in permeable pavement, which you can see here. This is just one example where we're incorporating some hard surfacing, which you can see from the little concrete squares there, but we also infill that with gravel and pavement. So what we want to do is reduce the amount of runoff. We know Rawls Creek it runs through the property. We want to be a good neighbor and reduce the amount of runoff to avoid any potential flooding issues downtown. So that's the first thing we would take a look at. Next slide. Walking trails, another big component of the project. It's not high on the cost scale, but it is going to be high on the experience, if you will, of the park. Walking trails are a huge success. We've done numerous walking trails for Richland County Rec, Lexington County Rec, and recently Kershaw County Rec as well. Next slide. So what we want to do is minimize the amount of impact on the existing site. We want to conform to the existing topography. We want to limit the amount of cutting, limit the amount of filling. We definitely don't want to have to take out any large caliper trees, minimize the amount that we have to take out for understory trees. And a lot of times what we'll do is meet with the owner and actually walk the site and put flags out where we would like for the trail to go. We can survey those and put those on the plan. Get the community involvement also to kind of plan where we want the walking path. Other things we can do is put in exercise stations. I know that's not part of the budget right now, but we can certainly add those. Here's some examples of some walking trails we've recently completed. It's like anything, you can spend as much as you want. So you can either put in just granite screenings as your base walking trail, and you can go all the way up to rubberized surface, which is what we have on the Denny Terrace Trail and the Ridgewood Trail. Both of those are rubberized surfaces. Obviously, those are more expensive than a granite screening trail. Dog parks and community garden, another big component of the site. Community gardens, those have gotten to be very popular recently. Everyone we've put in, that seems to be, one of the main points of discussion. So what we would want to do is meet with the community, meet with the people who are going to be using the community garden, figuring out what they want to plant. Do they want raised gardens? Do they want gardens at grade? What type of water source do they need? What type of irrigation? What type of security they want? So those are all, big components of the design for a community garden. Dog parks, again, those have gotten to be real popular. You can make it as simple as fencing in a grassed area, or you can put in different amenities for the dogs to enjoy, tunnels and whatnot, things to leap over. And in our proposal, we're showing a dog park for small dogs and large dogs, because sometimes they don't get together. So you try to have different facilities for those so they can all enjoy it. Next slide, please. Okay, playgrounds. Those have gotten to be sort of complex, I would say, in the last 10 to 15 years, and we've done numerous ones for Richland County Rec and Lexington County Rec. And what we would do is work with the town, selecting a playground manufacturer and installer, and it's basically a la carte. They will give you a list of different playground equipment components. Based on your budget, you can pick as many as you want to, and once you have the list down of the different playground components you want, they'll actually come up with a layout, putting everything together, and it can be configured in different ways. And then once we finalize on a concept, that can be shipped to the site and installed. But another big component of playgrounds is actually your impact, your ground impact zone. Again, there's different costs for each one. You can go as simple as just wood chips, which are designed for playgrounds, all the way up to rubberized surface. And obviously there's a different cost scale for each one of those. So depending on the budget, once we kind of tie down the major components of the park, then we can kind of dial in what money we have left to figure out what type of impact resistance we want for the playground. Restroom building. All right, that's the only building on the site, and it's really going to be your only vertical component. So you can see that we put the restroom pretty much in the center of the property for a couple reasons. Number one, it's going to be a visual anchor as you walk into the park. That's going to be your focal point. And it's also a central location for the restroom. And what I've learned over 30 years of working on parks is, even though it's a recreation facility, nobody wants to walk that far to the bathroom. So you need to have it near everything that's going on. So it's centrally located, as you can see. And as far as the styles go, next slide, please. The sky's the limit. The one on the bottom left, it was a building that was meant to mimic a nearby railroad station, and it looks great. And then the one on the bottom right is obviously completely different. So that's something that we can work through the town with to see what style we want. Do we want to match an existing type of style that the town has at other facilities, or do we want to do something completely different? And one thing that we thought would be neat to do is actually add a dog washing station in the restroom, which is what we did at this facility. They've become very popular. Next slide. Okay, the last major component is the skate park. And we want that to be a destination facility. Again, that's the reason for bringing in the skate park designer, Team Payne. The one that you can see here is roughly 9,000 square feet, and it's about the same size as the one at Owens Field. And it's been a huge success, and we have no reason to think that the one that we're going to install at Ross Park would not be the same. All right, concept plan costs. That's the big question everybody wants to know. So you can see the first three items here, the skate park, restroom building, and playground. Those are your big ticket items. So once we get into the design, we can kind of figure out, we can budget as we go. What type of materials do we want on the building, metal roof, asphalt, shingle roof, what type of playground equipment. So we can kind of dial in and adjust the budget numbers as needed depending on what the current market is at the time. But you can see the bottom line number is 1.8 million. And we feel that's a pretty close number to what we're going to end up with. Now, at the very bottom, you'll see there's a comparison number. So we took the original rendering concept for the part that was given to us, and we actually did a cost takeoff on that. And we're about $50,000 off between that rendering and the concept that we've come up with. And when you're talking about $1.8 million, 50,000, you might as well say they're equal. So we're right there with what you've presented originally. All right, so how do we get there? The first three items that you can see here, those can go on simultaneously with the survey, kickoff meetings, public outreach, and geotechnical. But one of the first things that we want to do, and this is critical, is have our outreach, have our community meetings, have the community provide input into what they want to see. And that's basically the programming phase. Once we decide on a path forward, what we would do is take the next step, which would be the schematic design. And that's just one step above the programming. So we would put pen to paper, come up with a layout, present that back to the town and the community, get everybody's blessing, go back to the drawing board, and then prepare what's basically a 50% set of design plans, which is your design development. At that point, then we can put some pretty hard cost numbers on there to see if we're within budget. If we are, and everybody's still in agreement with the plan, then we can go to the next phase, which is completing the construction documents. Once we have those together, we get the permits that are required by the town, the county, and then go out for bid. And once we get to that point, then we can start construction. The next slide, those are the design fees. I'm not going to go through each one of those, but you can see the bottom line, $136,000, which is actually 7.6% of our estimated construction cost, which is a little bit lower than what the industry standard would be, which is about 10%. And those are based on construction costs. If you had a project that was, say, $10 million or more, then your fee would go down to around 7% or so. So it's a sliding scale. So we're a little under than where the industry standard would be for that size project. And that's the presentation that I had for you this evening. Do you have any questions?
Can you point me back to the slide where you had the breakdown of the overall? Is that in my package here, the breakdown of the overall cost?
Yes.
That's in here. That's in here, right? That was there.
That
And
yes.
your fees based on what I'm looking at, I guess let's take the skate park, for instance. You have a skate park design fees and everything, $21,000. Is that included in that 405, or is that separate?
The total cost, the engineering fees, that's above the 1.8, if that was your question.
Well, I mean, okay, and the way and correct me if I'm wrong, counsel, the way I envision it, that each amenity had its own cost, like the skate park has a cost
Correct,
associated
correct,
with
and
it.
that's on two previous slides.
Right.
Right.
So the skate park you have on here, estimated cost of construction being 405,000.
Correct.
And then on top of that, you have a civil engineering estimate of 21.9. So is that 405 plus 21.9, or is that 405 included, that 21?
No, the 405 would just be the construction cost, the estimated construction cost.
All right, so 405 plus 21.9
Correct,
for that piece.
correct,
Because I'm gonna give those pieces to a group and say, okay, you need to come up with $426,000.
that's correct, yes,
That's what's gonna cost you to build your part of that project.
correct,
And the same thing with the community garden.
correct.
Community garden's gonna cost, I don't see it on here now.
The community garden, though, the rest of the items
Right.
would not be broken out, specific like the skate park design fee.
Right,
So the building, the parking lot, your playgrounds, dog park, community garden, all of that's gonna be included in your civil engineering, landscape, structural, architecture, all of that.
okay. Got it. So let's say that community garden, I'm gonna give that piece to that group and say you have to come up with $50,000 to do your piece.
Correct. And if you wanted a hard design number for that, we could get that to you.
Well, I mean, your engineering and stuff has to include whatever it costs for that.
Yes, and it does.
Okay.
It does.
Anyway, you got it.
Thank you. Oh boy. Thank you for being here tonight. So, talk to me a little bit about your expectation of payment terms and payment schedule.
Typically, the way it works in our industry is once we sign a contract, we're not asking for any fees up front, any retainers. Basically, pay as you go. So if we get through the programming phase of the project and the programming phase amounts to 10% of our fee, then we would send in an invoice for 10%. And we can break it down like that. Some clients just want a lump sum. Some clients want it phased. You know, programming, schematic design, design development, construction administration, all broken down, which is fine. We like to do that also, so we can kind of keep track of where we are and what we've been invoiced.
Anything else? Anything else?
That's it.
Oh, Kathy?
I'm good.
All right, well, one last question. I think what you gave us here for your engineering piece, which is what I have here,
Okay.
would it be possible, well, some of this stuff is like the infrastructure, we have to do that. We have to pay for that. But what I'm getting at is like the dog park, the community garden, and the skate park. Those amenities have costs associated with it. And I think you have attempted to do that here in your estimate, what it would cost. Is it possible to do this entire project, and if we don't do the dog park right away, but know that it's gonna cost $50,000 to do the dog park, we can do that later on? We can do that when that money becomes
Right.
available?
Right. Sure, yes, we can absolutely do that. And really, and again, the only thing that's broken out in there is the skate park, because that's
Right.
kind of its own entity. So that was easy to break out their fee, but a lot of the other items are, they're just commingled together. But if
We get the infrastructure put in place, everything's ready to go.
Right.
Now we're just waiting to actually start the construction on the dog park, community garden, skate park.
Right, that's correct.
Okay. I mean, that's the way I'm thinking. Anybody thinking any differently than that? No?
It's a lot of money,
Yeah.
and, but we've built several parks before, and I understand that. But we certainly have to think about it.
Mhm.
Your presentation was very good one.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Yeah, Mayor, if you don't
I'm
mind.
sorry, go ahead.
As someone who does these myself, so you're up against a competitor. Why should we choose you? What makes you unique or special? Why should you be the winning vendor?
Right. Everything being equal, I would say that personally, I have a lot of recreation design experience. I've been the on-call engineer for Lexington County Rec for the past 25 or 30 years. I've pretty much done all of their facilities. And the same thing with Richland County Rec until they had their shakeup several years ago. And we've recently started providing, engineering and landscape architecture services for Kershaw County Rec. I was meeting with them yesterday, actually, on improving one of their facilities as well. So I would say that, just the experience that I have locally, 6 miles away, plus the in-house landscape architects, don't necessarily need landscape architects on ballparks, baseball fields, and football fields, but when you start talking about something like Rawls Creek, then you definitely want a landscape architect involved. And again, we have 3 on staff.
Thank you.
Jake, we had a problem with the trees in the community park. When that was resolved, we ended up on the end of a problem because somebody disturbed the dirt and it caused the tree to die. And what do we ask from him as far as that?
He's gonna be key in doing all the plans, that, making sure the tree protection is up and working before any soil's disturbed on that site. That was an issue last time.
Right.
Do not want that to happen again. Tree protection is gonna be on top of the list of what we gotta make sure happens out there.
And typically what we would do as part of the survey is do a tree survey. We would do a tree inventory. Typically anything 12 inches and larger, we would survey. Trees smaller than that are typically, they're juvenile or understory trees. But we can survey as much as the town wants. We can go down to 4 inches. Obviously, the more you survey, the more it costs. But typically it's 12 inches. Sometimes we get down to 10 inches. And we would do that anyway because we want to accommodate the existing grand trees, the larger trees that are there. We don't want to impact those trees. And yes, that's correct. We would put up tree protection fencing around the trees that we want to save. You've seen the orange fencing. We write specs that tell the contractor, what they can and what they can't do around the trees, not storing equipment, not storing materials, not disturbing the root zones, all of that. So that's definitely part of what we do.
Okay. Y'all had anything? Whit?
I've got a question. You're bringing in, I think what you call it, Team Payne to do
Correct.
the skate park?
Correct.
Are they a design install company or just a design?
Just design, yes.
Okay. Do they have a contractor that they work with to do the actual installation of it?
They do. They have several, depending on what part of the country, and they're out of the Orlando area. But they'll be up to assess the property, work with the town on doing the design, having somebody come up to meet with the community to discuss the programming of the facility, what different types of amenities they want in the actual skate park, the rails and the bowls and what have you. So they'll definitely program it.
Can I ask one question? And I asked the question really for my own edification because we had an issue with a landscape architect once before. And it was a relatively large issue and took a lot of my time, energy, effort, and court time. A landscape architect is not an architect.
Correct.
What is it?
Landscape architects they design parks. They are well-versed in different tree specimens, shrubs.
They just get on the job training and call themselves landscape architects.
Well, okay, yeah.
But you know that they know what they're doing.
Absolutely, right.
Landscape architect doesn't operate architect, it's
Well, it's like Central Park, if you've ever been there, landscape architect, and, you know, which looks much better than if I had laid it out.
I've always loved the name landscape architect, but it sounds so scholarly and official, it's really a design. And that's good.
Right.
I appreciate the honesty. We went through this once before, and we thought we were getting something that we weren't getting, but, wonderful answer, and I thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. The 405, the figure for the skate park, is actually, to build it is gonna be more than that?
I think the question was the design fees. Was that part of the cost of the 405, which it's not? So if you take the 405 and add the skate park design fee to it, then that would, if you want to just have that as a standalone component, that would be the total.
Okay. I understand.
Any other questions? No. Well, I thank you very much for your presentation. I think council has a good grasp of what you're presenting for us to look at, and we will certainly get back to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
Ready for hybrid?
Yeah, come on.
Well, good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is Doug Clary. I serve as the president of Hybrid Engineering right over here at 7400 Irmo Drive. With me tonight is Larry Watts, who serves as our vice president. We are delighted to be here tonight for this interview for the new Rawls Creek Park project. We are a civil, structural, and environmental consulting engineering firm. We provide services to a variety of types of clients, but probably 80% of our work is for units of local government. We also serve some industries, including some very large industries from time to time, including such large industries as General Electric. Just a little bit more about us. We were founded here in August of 2008. We're an employee-owned S corporation, and when I say employee-owned, I mean that both in spirit and in fact. We offer our employees an opportunity to be shareholders in the firm. It makes them work harder because they own the place. Our offices, as I mentioned, are right over here at 7400 Irmo Drive, behind the Kroger Shopping Center. We started out our firm here in Irmo and were previously over on College Street, right behind the CVS Pharmacy, and we sometimes kind of miss that little place over there. Our professionals are licensed in South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida, and California, but all of our work right now is in South Carolina. Feel free to visit our website. The website address is noted in our presentation. Our practice of engineering truly does span the breadths of civil, structural, and environmental engineering. As you see there, we are routinely involved with parks and streetscapes and all kinds of land development, water and wastewater matters, transportation-related projects, the structural, the environmental, and then the proper administration of the construction contracts. We were previously involved in the planning of the Irmo Town Park. Larry was key and instrumental in that effort, and so I'm going to turn this over to him. I should have mentioned, though, feel free to interrupt us at any point in time if you have questions or comments. We want to make this as informal and as interactive as it can possibly be, so feel free to ask us any questions at any time. So, Larry?
Sure. Yeah, and like Doug said, we've been here since 2008. We've done some projects for the town of Irmo and look forward to doing this one. As he mentioned, we did do the conceptual design on what was then called the town park, but now it's called the community park, which is a great park. My kids go there all the time. We all love doing the okra strut and enjoying the amphitheater and the amenities that it has. But today, we're talking about Rawls Creek Park, and if you hit that one more time there, I have a little flyover, see if it'll work for us, of the property over there in Friars Gate. Okay, that might have been too chunky for it. This was the flyover, on a drone flyover of the property as it exists today. If it bogs your laptop down, you might just have to move on to the next slide. Yeah. This is the conceptual plan that Hybrid was that we performed for the town of Irmo that you guys have seen. We incorporated a lot of the elements that were asked that Whit and then the administrator, Bob Brown, and the skateboard folks are all addressed in our conceptual that's presented here. We were asked to include a skate park, a community garden, dog park, children's playground, the restrooms, perimeter walking paths, and new green parking, and improve the existing parking, upgrade the lighting, and a well house for the irrigation of the community park, as well as a decorative gate. I know the council members have all had a chance to see our conceptual. Some of the townsfolk that are here may not be privy to this, but we designed a skateboard park that was equivalent to the one out at Owensfield Airport, which is the only one that I know of that's in or around Columbia. The community garden is a garden that would be a space where residents who don't have the luxury of being able to grow vegetables in their on the property, or say they're live in an apartment, they could get a little small spot and grow some gardens, and that seems to be a big interest to people in larger towns. That my kids live in Seattle and Charlotte, and they are like, oh yeah, that's big here. People are standing in line to do something like this, so that's a good thing. The dog park, I mean, everybody has pets, especially dogs, loves the dog park. In our design, we have two separate dog parks, one for larger dogs, and then a small one for the small dogs, so they don't, get to fighting each other. The restrooms that would be that we envision at the park would emulate what is at the community park. It would, in design and appearance, a very nice looking design, but we understand that you guys would like to maintain the identity of Irmo's parks, and that would be reflective here in the restrooms that would be included at this. The perimeter walking paths would just encircle the property and be somewhere nice for people to walk, and that seems to be a big thing. The visits that I've done out there just to assess the property and what's out there and what needs to be done, there's a lot of people walking out on the sidewalks and the streets, and some people even came into the park, and I conversed with them, and they're like, hey, what are you doing? Kind of told them what I was doing. So that's a good thing for all of us as we get older, including myself. The new green parking is, we want to, instead of just having straight up asphalt as most grocery store parking lots are, we're trying to incorporate a pervious pavement so that when it rains, the water has a chance to sink down through the pavement and get back into the ground instead of flowing off into Rawls Creek, which is a troubled watershed anyway. It has enough inflow from all the businesses in the parking lot that are around here anyway. So we want to use and incorporate as many green amenities as we can, and that's certainly in our minds as we proceed forward with this. Also is improve the existing parking that's already there that is in not that great a shape. There is some lighting on site that service the old tennis courts that used to be there. So there is some lighting that can be just upgraded. So that's why we have upgraded lighting. Now we do want to, of course, light the skateboard park and the community garden, and they would be lighted during normal operation hours like all the other parks that Irmo has. The well house and irrigation, well, that kind of speaks for itself. We'd have a well there that would service the front and the entrance where the landscaped areas are, but it would also service the community garden so that those folks could have their plants watered. And a decorative gate out front. I know Witt has told me that they want to have a gate so they can close off the park during the hours where it's not in use, much like the community park has done. And have a decorative gate or a fence outside along the street so that it is pretty. Okay? Why select hybrid? Well, we've been here forever. We love working for the town of Irmo. It's in our backyards. It's practically in my backyard. I just live half a mile from here. But when Doug and I started this company, we chose the name hybrid because we've both worked at a lot of bigger firms and where an employee is just kind of a number. And so we wanted to take the good experiences and the bad experiences from the places that we've worked and make a hybrid of all those places and incorporate good human relations and treat our employees right. That's why Doug mentioned that we offer stock ownership to our employees. But we pride ourselves, there was a number of mission statements that we had when starting hybrid, and unparalleled an attention to service and to try to be always connected and available to our clients, because water and wastewater and problems with the park don't happen from 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. Sometimes it happens on a Saturday afternoon. Well, you can get hold of us, I'm sure to say in 24/7, but we're always available. We have extensive prior project experience in all these areas that we've mentioned before. We practice value engineering, which means we don't just go after the most expensive alternative. We try to use some in-house services if possible. We sort of envision that we would get Witt's involvement because he does such a great job with keeping the grounds in Irmo looking beautiful, which was one of the reasons that I moved here personally. I was taken back when I pulled off that interchange that's so well kept, and I was like, wow, this looks better than any other interchange up and down the highway. So I want to get his input as to what he sees as far as landscaping, what he sees as easy to take care of or a pain to take care of, or don't use this kind of landscaping kind of thing. We are environmentally aware, hence the green in our color of our company color. We're headquartered right down the street, as I mentioned. We have great rapport with our contractors and the folks that bid on our projects. They They call us up frequently just to ask even questions on projects that aren't our projects. So we like to think that we have a good contractor. We have good respect from them, and we do respect them. And the last one, as I just mentioned, we're totally connected and pretty much always available. And we're open for questions.
If you would go through some numbers with me. You got Rawls Creek Park project estimated at 127, 110.
Yes, sir.
That's all of your engineering for every phase of the project, I suspect.
Yes,
Is
sir.
that right? Okay, so as I was mentioning to the, and council, y'all stop me if you think I'm going astray. This project we envision being in pieces. We have of course, we have the infrastructure, which is the water and the walking trails and the actual pads for
Right.
the skate park, the community garden, and the dog park. And if you guys have, I think y'all broke it up. Yeah, you broke it up into 2 dog parks, small and big. So all those amenities have a group of people working on those amenities, and they have a task of coming up with the funding for their amenities. Okay? So when we look at this 127, 110, do you have it broken out into pieces, or is it just everything for your construction?
This was for everything. Now, in not knowing exactly what those groups, what input that they would have, we do stand ready to work with them closely and get their input. And I'm sure that this design will be molded into something a little bit different as they have their input. But this was our best calculation at the time.
And Mr. Mayor, you may have some of these tasks that you feel are not necessary, just like you may have some other tasks in mind that you would like to add.
Sure.
And what we would say to the town of Irmo, as we do to all of our clients, is we're happy to work with you to develop a scope of engineering and design services that accommodate your needs.
Yes, in other words, if we can look at y'all, I mean, this is an overall project y'all have here. And if we said, hey, we understand the bottom line is gonna be 127, 110, but if we can break it out into phases, in other words, do everything infrastructure-wise so that we're ready to go to build the dog park, we're ready to go to build the community garden, we're ready to go to build the skate park, and then be able to build those pieces and work with those groups, that when they're ready to go, we can say, okay, now we're ready to implement that phase of the project. So it may not all happen all in one day or one time.
Right.
Does that
Mayor,
cause you?
That's a great idea too, and though we've worked for probably 30 municipalities across this great state, I've never heard a mayor stand before the crowd and saying, we're gonna task these special interest groups with securing their funding. What a great idea. My hat's off.
Well, they may not like it, but. Eric, you have any comment?
Yeah, so we received an estimated cost of construction from the other vendor. Have you done the math on that?
Yes, we
We have not seen
I understand.
anybody else's construction cost projection. We produced one.
Right.
Yeah, I couldn't find that estimated cost of construction in the response.
Well, now, we had produced one and given it to the old administrator. When we were contracted to do the conceptual, the picture we just saw up on, I gave him this our labor and cost projection for doing the engineering, but then I went ahead and gave him a construction cost opinion at that time as well. Now, that wasn't asked for tonight's
I
meeting.
understand. Yeah,
But yes, we do have it. It might be a few months old when we did the conceptual back then, and those numbers might have changed with
Oh, yeah.
the availability of
Yeah.
things.
Cost of labor
as
today
they
isn't what
are.
it was.
Courtney?
But yes, we
necessarily.
do have it. Short answer is yes, we do have that.
Courtney, you got that, Barrington?
I don't have it, but I think I know where it is.
Okay.
Y'all, I would note that we've just gone through an analysis of the increase in construction cost over the last 12 months through the American City and County Magazine's information, the municipal cost index and the construction cost index that municipalities pay, and it was an astounding 11% over the last year for what municipalities are paying for construction services across the country.
Have you factored in inflation? Since we're in that, the key seems to be going up, is that gonna affect the cost as well?
The cost that you previously presented, I would expect probably had a contingency in there.
It did.
It would have been projected a few months forward. I don't recall exactly what the
That's not
contingency amount would have been. My guess was it was 10%.
Okay.
Forgive my naivety on how construction and engineering works. What is your standard payment process in terms of payment terms or payment schedule?
We bill monthly. We would work out a contract agreement for the scope of services, and then it's billed monthly. And Courtney just showed me that he has the cost, construction cost opinion that I gave back in April. That's when that was.
Do you feel comfortable with that number? I mean,
haven't-
I know, sorry, let me see if I can phrase this right. With the assumption that there probably have been some cost increases on a variety
Yes, in
of items.
6 months ago,
Yeah,
like Doug mentioned, I'm sure some things may be about the same, but concrete price, asphalt prices, they fluctuate.
Yeah.
Asphalt particularly.
Asphalt's gone up?
Asphalt fluctuates. It goes up with oil prices, up and down with oil prices, kind of. Some of the things, and we're not using a whole lot of asphalt in this, hence the green design of it. But the skateboard park, concrete, isn't the other biggie that fluctuates, goes up, down, mostly up. So,
You know, you go out there today and you see that this place needs attention. But at the same time, it is an open canvas right now.
yes, it is.
And we think keeping it simple and modest, that we could put a wow factor on this that would raise the standard for everybody around there. And we like that part of it.
Can you say that again, please, a little louder?
Yes, sir. We think that you go out there today and the property looks a little as in being in need of attention. That's saying it nice. And yet the other side of that, especially when you look at your drone video, is this is an open canvas. And we have the opportunity, though keeping it modest and keeping it simple, to establish some wow factor in that neighborhood. And hopefully raise the quality of life for everybody out there. With the rising tide raises all boats.
I agree. I'm especially partial to the community garden, to the walkways and trail, skate parks, whatever. I don't know enough about it to make a judgment do know we need more community gardens.
We,
And
we,
we need more local walking trails. And we need bathrooms.
we hear all the time about how popular these garden spaces are and how in some places people wait in line for years to get a spot.
Yeah. Well, population's definitely aging in Irmo, and having everything raised up would make it a lot easier for some of us to garden. So that's the part I'm partial to.
Well, and even though Friars Gate is an older neighborhood, a lot of younger first-time home buyers are moving in there, and they're fixing up those older houses, which are still cool houses. You know, they're not cookie cutter like a lot of these new tract home neighborhoods. You know, and as Doug mentioned, this would be a great amenity for that area. I know that there's the Friars Gate Park, which is attached to H.E. Corley School back there, and that gets a lot of use for baseball, but there's not much else for anything else as far as, like you mentioned, the community garden, for a community garden for the older folks, or just the walking trails, you know. My neighborhood right back here in Harbison has the walking trails that were incorporated into the design back in the late 70s, early 80s, and I use those, ride my bike on them all the time, and a lot of people use those to walk on and walk their dogs. So you're exactly right. I mean, I just think this part would be so a good thing for the Friars Gate folks, and it would bring maybe push those homeowners to fix up their homes a little bit. I know you guys have had some trouble with parking in the front yard, and the police are out there sometimes for not the best reasons, but I think it would be a good thing overall.
I agree.
This preliminary I'm looking at,
Yes, sir.
it's got a date of April 2012. It's supposed to be 2021?
2012. Yeah, that must.
2012?
That was a typo.
Oh, it is 2021.
Yes.
It's supposed to be 2021.
2021. Yes.
Okay. I was getting ready to say.
If I could just add, we obtained that when we were looking at applying for grants and things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't have a lot of things that he knows now, so that cost, I would assume, would,
Oh, I agree, but if it's 2012, that's like
well,
20 years ago.
We didn't know about Rawls Creek Park in 2012.
Give us our dyslexia was acting up.
Yeah,
that
right.
day.
You guys got,
If y'all knew, if they knew 9 years ago.
We're not perfect.
if you look at that and say 10, you said 10% more, 12% more?
Been 11 over the last 12 months.
Okay, so a year from now, 11% of that more. You know, the estimates that they got here is a lot more what I thought it would be in line to what we're gonna spend. Now, again, we got it broken out into different phases, like the skate park, the dog park, and all that. But if you gave them a bill of saying that as opposed to the other one, you know, and add 10%, 12% to it.
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes down to the project assumptions and not necessarily one firm over another.
Yeah.
No. I'm not saying one firm over another.
Oh,
I'm just saying cost.
It's cost-wise.
Right.
Yeah,
Because that's what at the end of the day, that's what we gotta look at,
right.
is what that number is.
Yes.
On either one. You know, this number here is what they're charging to do it.
And at that time, we really didn't know, and you mentioned there would be the groups that want to get involved or have a say-so or bring in some money. At that time, it was just a pure pie in the sky. How big is a community garden? Is it as big as the table Courtney's sitting at, or is it as big as this room? How many do we need? I mean, everything on that conceptual has room to grow or shrink. change, move around, be kicked out, something else could get incorporated in.
Do y'all have landscape architects that y'all contract with, or y'all have them in-house, or what?
We've never used a landscape architect. We kind of do it ourselves.
Well, the reason why I'm asking is because we had a problem in the community park after it was all done where a tree got disturbed and unfortunately a branch fell off, and we had a tragedy over there.
Yes, sir.
After all the smoke cleared and all the lawyers got involved, they said it was because the landscape architect, whoever did that work, disturbed this tree and it had a failure. So knowing that from that experience, going forward for this experience, do y'all have the expertise in-house or to identify those, what do you call it, Whit? The tree mitigation or something? Is that what you called it?
Tree protection.
It's tree protection, thank you. Of the big trees you're gonna keep and make sure that they don't get,
Mr. Mayor, that was certainly a tragedy that
Yes,
occurred
it
at
was.
that park, and we hated to see that happen. Obviously, the town can be assured that we will pay special attention if we're fortunate enough to be selected to the condition of the existing trees out there and to work with the town to identify problematic trees, whether we need to bring in an arborist or not, because we know you would never want that sort of thing to ever happen
Sure.
again.
Thank you.
Eric, ask her a question. Ask her a question.
The mayor's referring to why should we choose you, but
There
you
you go.
already answered that. You said why we should choose you right up front. So thank you.
Okay. Whit,
I'll ask the same question I asked the other company. How are y'all planning on designing the skate park, and do you have a contractor that has experience building these skate parks?
We don't have a contractor that is familiar, well, I'll take that back. I don't know of a contract that just does skate parks. The actual concrete design, I mean, that's what this thing is just shaping concrete. It's much like a swimming pool. Other than this has to have drainage in the bottom, and that's what we do, is structures, drainage, water. That's what we're talking about here. It's not so much landscape architecture, it's structures and concrete, reinforcement, and draining this thing when it rains in it, and we don't want water sitting in the bottom. We have a number of contractors that do concrete work. I don't know that they specifically do a skateboard park, but I don't see where it's really any different from doing a settling basin that we have, other than the shape of the thing. It still has water in it or some liquid it has to drain. Now, there will be the curves and the whatever the design elements that that skateboard committee brings into, but I don't see, it's just construction. And I don't think we'll have a problem with it when it comes time to bid it out and get somebody interested in it. If you know anybody, let us know.
Courtney, you got any question, anybody? Jake, we're not gonna get sued or anything?
No, I have known these gentlemen pleasantly for a long time. I know they're good.
Well, thank you for that compliment. That's nice.
Well, thank you very much. Anybody else have any questions? Anybody else have any questions? No? No? Okay. Hey, thank y'all very much for your presentation. It was very thorough and we appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Always good to see you.
It's
Yeah.
good to see y'all too.
Yeah.
And thank you for letting us be here. We're honored and flattered
Yes, we are.
to have the opportunity to come visit with you.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on. Approval of resolutions 2104. This is the resolutions that was in our packet to acknowledge the digital sign. Is there a motion for approval? I'll make the motion. Is there a second? Just second.
Second for discussion.
Okay, second and motion made and second. The resolution you see in front of us is for the, oh, by the way, Bill, you're back with us now? Okay. The motion you see in front of us is for the digital sign that's at Macedonia Church. It's the electronic sign from the company, what is it? Grace Advertising. They had a sign that was originally at the chamber site where Starbucks is located. It's been up there for years, and they simply moved it from where it was down to the church. Before we had our new council and seated, and before we passed our new zoning change, our zoning ordinances. We also went into an agreement with them that because they were moving it from one location to the other, we want to have access to that digital sign as far as advertising the town of Irmo's events and information. And they agreed to do that as long as we wanted. In fact, we have a permanent sign on that sign where it points to the community park, which is one of the things that we wanted to erect ourselves. And so we got basically 2 for 1. We got a directional sign to the community park, as well as we have access to digital advertising on the sign. So this resolution is basically recognizing that and as a non-conforming sign, but it's located at that site, and it was a non-conforming sign after we passed the ordinance or our new zoning change.
I might also add to you that they have an arrangement where they are doing regular financial support for Macedonia Baptist, which is one of our longstanding churches.
That's right.
In Irmo, probably one of the oldest churches we have. And the sign is sort of important to the maintenance of that church. I think they pay the power bill for the church every month, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, paying part of the electric bill and part of the ground lease, I think it is, yeah.
It was one of the things we had to negotiate in order to get the old building torn down and the new buildings basically put up. They were incredibly appreciative and cooperative with us in regard to giving us the sign of the community park and dealing and helping the Baptist church down there.
I just have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
It was my understanding from Mr. Brown, I think, that there was a grandfathering of this sign.
Yeah,
That
that's
there
what,
was a special well, there was something, when it was at the other location, before it went up, perhaps, that said it could advertise anything.
that's right. That's my understanding.
I haven't seen it, but is that correct?
My understanding was that, yes, my understanding was the sign, when it was originally put up before we had a sign ordinance. Therefore, it would be grandfathered for basically most anything. When they moved across the street, and we basically talked with them, it was
We
quickly.
asked them to move, right?
We asked them to move it, they did that, and we had an understanding that, I mean, they weren't going to be advertising Platinum Plus or something of that nature, it would be wholesome advertising, and as they had always done, I mean, it had always been, from the time they put it up, it was always, rational advertising, and it was things that shouldn't offend anybody, I wouldn't guess. And it was understood when they moved it that, we wanted it moved, so that it could facilitate the improvement of that property over there. And they needed the grandfathering to continue, and now whether that was ever put in writing or not, I don't know. I think I did a contract. As a matter of fact, town asked me to do that, so I did it for free. But, the understanding was they'd be able to have a sign. That sign's been here since before we had a sign ordinance. It's simply moved the location is all we've done.
Okay, but you've never seen this in writing, right?
Oh, I don't know if the original contract I drew up for the church had that in there or not. I know that it had the language in there that they would give us for free a directional sign to the community park. I know that's in there. But I drew it up, and it's somewhere in the bowels of the town.
Okay.
So can they advertise? Can people advertise on this sign, commercial?
They've always been,
And the chamber had a big role at one time with the sign. And I don't know whether they still do or not.
I don't think the chamber does anymore, but they've always advertised, just classic business
Well,
advertising.
They advertise all the town events, and I appreciate that.
Oh, they've been very cooperative with us since they've ever been around with the town. And they've been around a long time. They support everything we've ever done, I think. And, the understanding we had was they were gonna move the sign and they'd be able to use it to advertise. It was gonna be a commercial sign. They were gonna help the church. They were gonna give the town a free sign. We were gonna recognize as being grandfathered, and that's pretty much it. And I think, the matter has just been brought up, and the question is it grandfathered or not? And I think you'd have a hard time if we ever went to court saying that it wasn't under those circumstances.
Eric, did you have a button?
Yeah, the only thing is the only challenge I have with this is the negotiation process and not knowing what was agreed to, and then formalizing that agreement here in
Which agreement now? What are you talking?
the negotiation process, which allowed the new construction on from the previous location.
That was at the church. That was
Mm-hmm.
the church's agreement. Is that what you're
There-
referring to?
The agreement that the town had with Grace.
I think
Or
the
to move.
town was actually a party to that agreement. I just don't know where it is.
And you can understand that, I mean, we're resolving something here that's making reference to a negotiation process and a document, and council does not have access to that document. So I don't really know what I'm agreeing to. And I would prefer to not vote on this until I see that.
It was prior to me, the original, I don't know who, it might not have been prior to Jay.
The original sign, I was here when the original sign was put up, and it was a long time ago. You were here when we negotiated to move it across the street.
Yeah, and that's I'm not worried about the old sign because it's not there anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm more interested in the documentation of what occurred, what the town agreed to, what Grace agreed to when that sign moved.
That's,
When it was moved,
When it was moved.
okay.
Moved.
Isn't that what we got in front of us right here?
No.
no, there is an agreement, which I think, I'm talking totally from memory. I think the town signed off on that agreement because that agreement provided that they would give the town, as long as the sign was there, the directional sign to the community park. But if it's certainly a legitimate question that Eric wants, let's get Courtney to either look for it or ask Grace to send it to us, and we can talk about it at the next meeting.
My concern here is twofold. One, I don't ever want to whereas on something that I don't know what it's saying.
Sure.
The second thing is, I also would like to know, I mean, I assume, big word there, I assume that the town and you, working for the town, right, did not say, and we'll give you $1 million in the year 2025, right? But I would certainly like to know what we agreed to
Hey, that's very legitimate. We need to find that piece of paper, and Grace has a copy of it, and the town, I'm sure, has a copy of it somewhere. And if Courtney would call whoever we're dealing with at Grace and let them send a copy of it, we can see exactly what was signed at the time.
Can,
All I remember is we asked them to move it.
We asked them to move it.
It was our request.
That's right.
It was developed.
Jake, can we grandfather, and it's a legal question, I don't know the answer, can we grandfather a sign that was installed originally before we had a sign ordinance? And then after we had the sign ordinance, the sign is now taken down and moved to another location. Is that legal to grandfather that? I mean, is that,
All you're doing.
that's what I'm concerned about.
All you're doing here is passing a resolution that the town recognizes the grandfathering status of it. If somebody wanted to come along and sue and say that your recognizing his grandfather doesn't make it grandfathered, then, okay, then we'll go to court and see what the judge says. You know, that resolution does no more than to say, look, we were the ones that asked for the sign to be moved. We understood that it was being moved. They weren't waiving any rights, and we simply recognize the thing as being grandfathered. So we're in effect instructing what you're in effect doing by this resolution is telling the town staff not to do anything to bother those people. If somebody else wants to bother them, then let them bother them. But that's all you're doing is saying, don't bother those people.
And if I can just add, I've been in communications with Hal, who's the owner of Grace
Grace.
Outdoors. He's been unable to locate any documents that kind of spell out this part of the agreement. He's agreed to execute new ones if need be, but those terms are still yet to be kind of determined on a memorandum of understanding about the content. And that's where this conundrum kind of lies, is there's a lot of digital signs in the town of Irmo. His is unique because he advertises for things away from that property, such as jobs for, insurance companies or jobs at hospitals. That's where the violation kind of lies. That's brought up some of this discussion. The quality and taste that of the content that he puts out there is never been challenged. The things he puts on there are very reasonable. And in working with him, if we were to ask, to have any content removed, he would probably do it without, us having to force him. So I say all that to say that, he's very accommodating, but this question lies because of the fact that that sign is advertising, which is what it did before when it was at its original location on St. Andrews Road.
James
On
Mack,
Lake Marie Boulevard.
James Mack negotiated the thing on behalf of the church, as I recall. And if we contacted the church, I am reasonably certain they would have a copy of it, but and James would be the person to contact. I'll look when I go back to the office and see if I have my copy of it. It's been so long ago, it may be before we put in our case management system to where I would have a electronic copy of it, and we've shred everything that's more than 7 years old. So I will look as hard as I can to see if I have one.
So the resolution we're taught in front of us right now is just to say that we recognize that there's a disconnect with the use and is grandfathered in.
As far, the thing, all that resolution does is say, as far as the town's concerned, it's grandfathers, he can use it like he's using it, and you're telling the police department and the administrators not to do anything to bother him. That's all it's doing. If somebody wants to come in and
You got a
sue us-
problem with that because
I'm going to be a no vote until I know what the negotiations are, or until a new memorandum is drawn up.
in the new memorandum of understanding or the
Yeah.
contract?
of
That's a-
understanding. I just want, because I'm glad that he's accommodating right now. If I don't know the man, but he passes away tomorrow, God forbid, and his son takes over, and his son or his daughter or his business partner is not accommodating, now we have a problem.
Let's see if
So-
we can't find the document. That's a very legitimate request.
Yeah, so
No hurry.
you want us to do the MOU first and then,
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd like to defer this until, and it doesn't sound like we're gonna it doesn't sound like we're gonna get the document by Tuesday. I know there's been some decent folks looking at it, so I'd like to defer the vote on this until, not the next
well, wait a
council
minute,
meeting, the
wait a
one
minute.
after that.
Before you defer, before you make that motion,
Yeah,
the MOU is the only thing you're looking for, is that correct? If we have that presented to you by the council meeting on Tuesday, would you be able to review it before the council meeting and then come to the council meeting and,
if I can review it before the council meeting, then
Yeah,
I can
of
review it
course.
before the council meeting, yeah.
all right,
I'll say that that'll put a challenge on our staff. I mean, tomorrow's Friday. These agendas need to go out
oh, that's right,
weekend.
that's right,
It's just
I forgot.
a lot of short notice.
You can put it on the agenda for Tuesday and defer it again if we have to. That's not a problem.
That works for me.
All right,
Yeah, that's a good idea.
all right, let's put it on the agenda, I'm sorry, Eric, is that okay? Let's put it on the agenda for Tuesday in the sense that we were gonna try to get the MOU out to everybody to look at, and then bring this back on the agenda on Tuesday as well. Once we got the MOU looked at and everybody's comfortable with it, is that all right with you, Bill? And then Kathy, is that all right? And then, yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. So we'll try to get that to everybody by this weekend and then come to the council meeting on Tuesday and then have this again on the agenda for the resolution, but then we'll have the MOU, which is something that we just, basically, we don't, that's something that Neil Courtney negotiates and signs off on, and as long as we agree to it, Is that all right?
Works.
All right, so Courtney, can we put this on the Tuesday agenda then?
I will. I had been speaking with Hal this past week, and he was out of town in New Mexico, but he should be coming back. So we'll see what we can get done.
And if we can't, we can't, but I mean, I think we
Yeah,
can.
it can be deferred again.
Yep.
Well, technically, this hasn't been deferred yet.
Well, no, it's not deferred, we just we're gonna put it on the upcoming agenda. Okay?
I have one question
Yes, ma'am.
before we adjourn.
We got some other stuff too.
When are we gonna decide who's gonna engineer here?
Oh, that's something we have to do.
Okay, that's a different agenda?
Yeah.
Okay,
We had the presentations tonight.
I
We'll
understand.
go back and melanate on it and then come back Tuesday.
Got it.
Melanate,
Cogitate.
cogitate, okay.
On Melanie.
Plus Kelly probably needs to be here too anyway, so. All right? So we got that out of the way. Any more discussion on that? Okay, at this point, it's presentation by citizens. Oh, you got something?
Did you take a vote to defer?
We're not deferring it, we're just putting it on the next agenda.
There's a vote on there's a
Oh, okay.
motion for.
Well, did you make that motion to defer? I didn't know if you did or
Yeah,
not.
well,
You didn't
I
complete that.
informally,
Okay.
yeah, I moved to defer to Tuesday, this coming Tuesday.
All right, I second it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, it's unanimous? Okay, there you go. All right. Presentation by citizens, this is a point where anything you heard tonight, anybody wants to add anything to it, say anything about it, this is your chance to come forward. I have Elsie Watts, 805 Creekleaf, J.C. Watts.
That might have been the presenter.
Oh, okay. And Marie Ryan, skate park, Marie Ryan, Whitby Court.
Hey, I wanted to share, I'm sure I'm loud enough.
I wanted to share a few things with you guys about, just about the skate park, like the design build of it. It is very important that the company that is hired has previous work for liability reasons, for damage, repair. There's a lot of companies out there that do it, but the first company that presented, their price was about $48 a square foot, where the company that we have been working with, or just talking to get information, they're gonna charge $35 a square foot. The owner only does one project at a time. He stays on site the entire time it's being built, and he does not subcontract out the work. There's been a lot of problems with different companies subcontracting out this work and stuff being left undone and it just not being done correctly. So I think that that is very important. Also, we wanted the skate park to be able to accommodate BMX bikes and roller skates, where that company that he had suggested, they, the way they do their concrete is not, it doesn't stand up to BMX bikes and stuff, so that would limit the amount of, or the variety of different people that could use it, I guess. And Thomas is an engineer, so I know he can speak a little bit better about the
Right.
importance of
I'm a
it.
mechanical engineer, not a civil engineer, but I guess I can use the mic. They're right when they say building a skate park is construction. Like, yes, you'll spec out your thickness, how much rebar you want, and the size of the rebar, where it needs to be placed. But there's a lot more nuance to it. For example, like if you want to have a ramp with pool block coping, you got to specify the nose radius of the pool block, how wide it needs to be, what type of grout you want to use in it, the cure cycle of the pool block, how it's going to be anchored. If you're using steel coping, you know the diameter of the coping, how far you want it to stick out. There's a lot to it that I also skateboard. I've been skateboarding for 20 years, so I know all this stuff, and I've built a lot of things to skate. That's kind of something you only know if you skate, and if you don't skate, you won't be able to build it properly. And there's a lot of nuance to the radius, like the transition radiuses on certain ramps, especially based on how tall they are. So it's pretty important to go with an experienced contractor who knows what they're doing when it comes to building skate parks. And they can also spec out the mixed design too, because you have probably 12 or 13 different additives to concrete, and you'll tailor that mix specifically for the skate park and to the site conditions. So there's a lot more to it than just building a pool.
And most of the companies include, in that $35 that we were talking about a square foot that the other company, they include the design, it's all incorporated into the same thing. And even the Tony Hawk Foundation says that skate parks roughly go $40 to $60 a square foot. So $30 is really good, especially if it's somebody who isn't gonna subcontract out, isn't, gonna be on the project, and focused on it. And he's actually, that contractor is the one who did the park in Florence. So he's got experience with this weather and the climate conditions, which can also affect it.
He did Florence, Spartanburg, and Myrtle Beach.
Okay. Anything else?
No, I just want to thank you all. We were offered, or we were invited to apply for the next phase of the Tony Hawk grant, which is up to $350,000. Not saying that we'll get that, but it's by invitation only, so that will get submitted tomorrow. So,
Congratulations. Thank you.
thanks.
Okay. Anybody else? Thank y'all. Anybody else for presentation by citizens? Seeing none, we don't have an executive session. Is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.